What's up, guys? Holly Harris here of Journey with Me podcast. So I am here today because I just wanted to drop a little life nugget for you today. This is something that has come up in my life recently, and I just wanted to offer some wisdom on how to combat it and allow it to work for you. And that is the spirit of frustration. That can happen, at times in our life when we have attained certain things, but we're still waiting on the thing that we want most. And so I wanted to use as a contextual, as a scripture today, the story of Hannah and Peninnah, which is found in 1 Samuel chapter 1. Elkanah had two wives. One was named Peninnah, who was able to bear him children, many sons and daughters. And then there was Hannah, whose womb was shut up. She was barren, but that was the wife that he loved. And so when speaking as it relates to frustration, as I stated, Hannah didn't have any children, and Peninnah had many sons and daughters. And as the scripture reads in chapter 1, again, 1 Samuel chapter 1, starting at verse 3, it talks about, and then this man went up out of the city yearly to worship and to sacrifice unto the Lord of hosts in Shiloh. So yearly they would go up to Shiloh, and he would make, a sacrifice to the Lord. And from that sacrifice, he would divide the portions of that meat sacrifice. And so it says in verse 4, and when the time was that Elkanah offered, he gave to Peninnah his wife and all her sons and her daughters portions. Okay, but to Hannah he gave a worthy portion, for he loved Hannah, but the Lord had shut up her womb. And in the Amplified, it reads that he gave to Hannah a double portion because he loved her. Okay, and so again, from that sacrifice, he would divide the portions and give Hannah that double portion because he loved her. And so then it goes on into verse 6 to say, and her adversary also provoked her sore, for to make her fret, because the Lord had shut up her womb. So it says, again, let me go back to verse 5. But unto Hannah he gave a worthy portion, for he loved Hannah, but the Lord had shut up her womb. And her adversary also provoked her sore. Okay, so there were two things that were provoking Hannah. The first was her circumstance, the fact that her womb was shut up, and her adversary also provoked her sore to make her fret because the Lord had shut up her womb, to make her worry about the fact that her womb had been shut up. And so, or the fact that she was barren. And so basically what it's showing us here is that not only did her circumstance provoke her to cause her to fret and worry, like, will I ever be able to have children for this man? But then she had an outside frustration in the form of her adversary, Peninnah, who would provoke her because of the fact that she did not have any children. And so, and that happens a lot of times. We have that inward thing that goes on. We know the things that we desire, that we want to see happen in our lives. And we know that the one thing that we're waiting on, that we want more than anything, that we have not seen happen yet. We know that thing is there. It's in the undercurrent, of a frustration that it hasn't happened. But then when that adversary comes, that outside person looking in, you already have that inner thing going, but when that outside person comes in and reminds you of that very thing, it can pull your frustration to an even greater level. And sometimes you're going through life, not even, you know that that's a desire of yours, but you're just kind of bopping along, living your best life, doing this, that, and the third, helping people, just being a blessing to people and learning, growing, developing, just, again, living your best life. But then it takes that one person that comes along that says, oh, but you ain't got this yet, that can cause that inward frustration to work its way on the outside. And that's what happened in this case. Hannah was doing, the best that she knew how to do. She didn't know how to bear children, without her womb being open first. She doing all that she can to bear children, but it just hadn't happened yet. And so, but she had that one person who was able to pour salt into the wound that caused that frustration to boil over. But, recognize that Hannah's response to the frustration is what we need to take account of. Okay, she didn't go to Peninnah and, cuss her out or, leave me alone or whatever. Because I think, first of all, she didn't do that because she understood the root of why Peninnah provoked her, because Elkanah loved her. And she knew, and sometimes when you know the root of why people do the things that they do, or why they try to make you miserable, or why they try to remind you of what you don't have, and the root of that is jealousy, or the root of that is because something is inadequate within them, and so it makes them feel better to remind you of what you're lacking. She knew the root of that was she's jealous. Because even though she got all these kids, I have Elkanah's love. And so when you know, again, when you know what people are working with, when you really can sense the people around you and in your life, then you begin to understand how to handle and to deal with them. And notice too, that this adversary was in close proximity. It makes no, sense to have someone, way on the outskirts looking in to say something to you, because 9 times out of 10, you're not going to care. But a lot of times it's the people that are closest to us that become Peninnahs to us, that become those points of frustration for us, bringing up those things that are within us that we desire, that we haven't seen happen yet. And they become the ones who cause that frustration to build to an even greater level. Like, for example, if you are married and you're having a hard time having children, but this is something that you desire, all it takes is that mama or that best friend coming along and saying, hey, when you gonna have kids? Or mama, when you gonna, a mama saying, when you gonna have me some grandbabies? I was, to cause that frustration within you to boil to a greater level than maybe it was before. Maybe you and your husband was traveling, y'all was living y'all best life. Yeah, y'all want to have kids, but you just kind of relaxed about it. You're like, okay, God, when it happens, it happens. But then all it takes is that person from the outside coming in and saying, when you gonna have them kids? That takes you to a level of being anxious when maybe you weren't anxious before about it. Because literally that provoking is meant to cause you to fret. It's meant to cause you to worry that this will never happen. And Peninnahs are not just people. Peninnahs can also be, it can be people, places, and things. Maybe there's a place that you haven't been to in a while that you go back to, and it reminds you of what you lost and what you're still waiting to see restored. Or, maybe it's a thing, maybe it's an object. Maybe you're, cleaning out your house one day and you find this love letter from a previous boyfriend or girlfriend that kind of brings, the frustration back up. Like maybe this is the one that got away, or maybe it's just the grief of a relationship, that was lost, and you're desiring to be in a relationship again, and you're still waiting on that to happen, and that provokes something within you. But yeah, it could be a person, a place, or a thing. But again, look at Hannah's response to this, okay? First, Elkanah comes to her when she sees that she's provoked and say, hey, Hannah, why do you weep? Basically, he's saying, why haven't you eaten? She literally was provoked to the place to where she was crying and she wasn't eating, okay? Why is your heart grieved? Am I not better than 10 sons? So basically he's saying, hey, have I not been better to you than you having 10 sons? Isn't our love great enough to be able to survive this and to be able to, because for Elkanah, he didn't know that she would ever have children. So he's trying to reassure her that I love you anyway. Can you just rest in the fact that I love you? And, not feel as though this one thing that is missing is a matter of life and death when, I'm here and I love you regardless, but that wasn't enough for Hannah. She wanted children. And again, as I stated, she took that being provoked and she used it the right way. It says, so she rose up after they had eaten in Shiloh, after she had eaten the sacrifice. She rose up, and after they had drank, and she was bitter in soul, and she prayed to the Lord, and she wept sore. So she was provoked to the point, provoked to being sore. But then she allowed that to pour out into her worship and her sacrifice to the Lord, to weep sore, to allow that provokedness and that bitterness to the place of her being sore, to the place of her being worried, to be then poured back in to the Lord, pouring her frustrations on God instead of outwardly. Again, she could have, chose to go and cuss Peninnah out, but she understood the root again of why Peninnah did what she did, and that at the end of the day, her cussing Peninnah out wasn't going to change her situation, but she knew who could change her situation, and so she went to the source. And so she began to, again, pour out her heart to the Lord, and basically share all of her soul with him. She made vows to him. She prayed. She wept. She didn't eat, so she went on an involuntary fast, and she poured all of her energy into that one thing and poured it all back on the Lord, and she provoked the Lord sore. She provoked the Lord sore to the place of him remembering her. The Bible talks about, when she went into that place and, began to pour out her heart, how Eli, one of the priests, thought she was drunk and just basically began to scold her as a result. And she had to say, no, I'm not drunk. I'm pouring out my heart to the Lord. And when she explained that to him, he then pronounced the blessing over her and said, hey, what you have petitioned God for will be answered. And so, then it goes on to talk about, after she rose up in the morning early and worshiped before the Lord, and she returned and came, so once she made her petition to the Lord, she then went about her business of continuing to worship, continuing to do the things that she needed to do. She did not allow that situation to stunt her or to paralyze her in that moment. But she made her request known. She did all of the fasting, all of the praying, all of the pouring her heart out before the Lord. She made a vow to him, and she just believed he would do it. She went about her day, and then the next morning when she rose up, she worshiped. She worshiped like, okay, God, I believe the word that the man of God told me that, hey, it's going to happen now. He's heard your petition. It's done. And she went about her business. She rose up early. She worshiped before the Lord. She returned, came to their house in Ramah, and Elkanah knew Hannah, his wife, meaning, they came together in sex, and the Lord remembered her. So my encouragement to you is when you face those moments in life where you're frustrated, where the closest person to you is reminding you of what you don't have, and it causes frustration to raise to an all-time high, that you don't cause it to make you lash out to people, you know, or go in on people, go in with God. Because at the end of the day, it is a matter that only He can solve. It's a matter that only He can bring to pass. So He is the one that we need to direct that energy to. We need to direct that frustration to, not in a way where you're mad at God, but that you turn that frustration into fuel, that to where you provoke Him in prayer. That for you've been provoked to the place of prayer, that you've been provoked to a place of fasting, that you've been provoked to a place of petitioning and pouring out your heart towards Him, and He will bring it to pass. And so that is my encouragement to you. I hope that helps someone today. I know it helped me, when I was going through my life, just bopping along, and, I receive a comment or whatever, and I go and I look at it, and it's literally directed towards the thing that I'm petitioning God for this year. And it caused frustration to rise up within me. But then, number one, I understood who the person was and maybe the root of why they said or did what they did. And so I was able to manage it to that level, to where I didn't lash out at the person, but I reminded God that, hey, this is something you promised me, remember me, and, being able to provoke God in prayer and being able to take that frustration back to Him instead of allowing it to take you into a place of depression, take you into a place to where you stop moving because you're so fixated on that one thing that you don't have, but that it causes you to keep going like Hannah did. She petitioned, she woke up, she worshiped, and at that point, God remembered her. And so be encouraged. Just know that God is waiting on the right time to remember you. And whenever you're provoked to be frustrated about something that you're waiting on God to do, that you would take that same energy, for lack of a better word, and provoke Him in prayer and remind Him of what He spoke over you, and even what you desire. The word declares that He will give us the desires of our heart. And so Hannah knew that, honey, and she was not going to stop until her prayer was answered. So keep going in prayer, keep going in life, keep believing, keep trusting. Don't allow frustrations to stop you from moving forward, because, greater is coming, and what He's promised you will come to pass. All right. God bless you. Thank you for listening. Have an amazing day. Until next time. Bye.